What's going on, guys? And today I'm going to do a video talking about the first round of the playoffs, my predictions that I had beforehand, and what I think is going to happen for the rest of the playoffs. Now, I don't remember my exact predictions in terms of games, but I know the general ideas I had for every series. So I'm going to go through all of them, say what I got right, say what I got wrong, and then move on to the next round. Again, I'm going to go over the Warriors-Rockets series, and I feel like I predicted this very well, where I believe this would go to 5 games, because I just said one game, the Splash Brothers are going to get cold, or James Harden's going to get incredibly hot, or something like that, and they're going to lose a game. It's nothing against the Warriors, but it just happens. And I was correct about this, as they end up winning the Warriors in 5 games. Nothing too surprising there, besides the Curry injury, which kind of sucks, but besides that, I predicted that almost on the nose. Moving on to the next one, I had the Clippers-Blazers series, and I believe I got this one wrong, where I thought the Clippers would win, I believe, in 6. I don't remember exactly what I said, but the Trailblazers ended up winning in 6. I am a Blazers fan, but realistically, if the Clippers were healthy, there was no way they would have won 4 games against them. Maybe they could have pushed to game 7, but at the very most, they would win in 7 games. And this is a great series for the Trailblazers. However, if the Clippers were fully healthy, I doubt that it would be the same outcome. And I got that one a little bit wrong. Moving on to the Mavericks versus the Thunder game series. I predicted this pretty well too. If I remember, I predicted it to be a 4-1 or 4-2 series in favor of the Thunder, and that's how it ended up being. It was not as close as it seemed to be, as there was only one game really that the Mavericks won, and it was off of an unlucky shot by Steven Adams, who missed the buzzer by about 1/10 of a second. But realistically, this is still good for the Thunder to warm up for the second round series, and I predicted that pretty well. Now moving on to the final series, I believe I predicted this exactly as well, of the Spurs versus the Grizzlies, and I just said this would be a flat-out sweep, as everyone thought so, because the Grizzlies have about like 3 healthy players that would start on the regular team. Actually, not even that, maybe Zach Randolph, and that's about it. But going through this series, I predicted Spurs to win in 4, I believe, and I got that right as well. Now moving on to the Eastern Conference, I said for the Cavaliers versus Pistons, I got this one wrong in terms of how many games. I believe I said the Cavs would lose a game. However, the Pistons did not win a single game, and they won 4-0, but I still thought that the Cavaliers would win. Now moving on to one of the harder games to predict, the Hawks versus the Celtics. I still believe I predicted the Hawks to win, and somewhat around this fashion in 6 or 7 games, and they ended up doing so, where Boston took 2 games. But they really couldn't do anything ultimately. So yeah, I believe I predicted that one correctly as well. Now moving on to another really tough one is the Miami Heat versus the Charlotte Hornets series. This one I said was hard to predict. I believe I said it would go to 6, and I'm going 7, but I favored the Heat, and the Heat made it to the semifinals as well. Now going on to the final series, which I know I got wrong, and I predicted the Pacers to upset the Raptors, and I believe a 6 or 7 game series, but realistically the Raptors, in real life, the Raptors won in their 7th game to push them into the second round of the playoffs. I know I hate on Toronto all the time and their playoff failures, and they flipped the script this year. Nothing really super surprising happened. I mean, the Raptors didn't play that well, but the Pacers really don't have that many offensive weapons, and defensively, even though they're a really, really good team, there's not that much they can do against 2 talented guards and an all-around pretty good team. Now moving on to what I think for the next round. Going on over back to the West, I know games have already came and gone, but first off, the Warriors versus Trailblazers. I think just like the Rocket series, at most, the Trailblazers might be able to win 1 game, and that's if Lillard gets very hot, and if Curry's still out and they're playing in Portland. I feel like if Lillard can get hot pretty easily and just take a game by himself, or if CJ McCollum has a great game, regardless, the Warriors will still win this one. They are heavily favored in this series. I feel like they're a much better team. As a Portland fan, it's hard to say, but I mean, this year they're predicted to win about 30 games, if that, so this is a great season for them nonetheless. Now moving on to the Spurs versus Thunder. It is already 1-0, and I think that the Spurs will win this in a 4-2 series, because I just feel like the Thunder, just like the Portland Trailblazers, can get hot and just win a game. However, the thing about them is that they're much better than that Trailblazers team, where they have two superstars, two top 5 players in the league, at least in my opinion, in Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and they can just frankly take over an entire series, those two. But the Spurs are so good they won't let that happen. Realistically, they can win a game or two at home, or maybe one on the road, but this will end in a 6-game series in favor of the Spurs. Now moving on back to the East, the Cavs versus the Hawks. I think this series is a little tough to predict. I still think the Cavs will win, but I think this will take about 6 games because Paul Millsap matches up pretty well with LeBron. He's not as fast, but he's pretty much just as strong, and he's a pretty great defender actually this year. So I think Paul Millsap will be able to not negate LeBron, but kind of slow him down a little bit. So I think that the Hawks will be able to win 2 games just because they're such a great defensive team. If you ever watch them, I was watching them versus Boston. I forgot which game, but it was just crazy to see how good they were defensively. And Jeff Teague can have a good game, and same with Al Horford. So I'll give them 2 games, but they'll still lose. Moving on to the Heat versus the Raptors. I don't believe in the Heat still, and I think I don't believe in the Raptors still, and I think the Heat will win in 6 games versus the Raptors. First off, the Raptors were playing a much worse team than the Heat had to, and it was very unmotivated. I don't know the right word, but they were struggling to win. I mean, they barely won that last game, and they weren't winning any games handily, it seemed. So I predict the Heat to win in 6. And I just feel like they're a much better team overall, and they have more potential to make it further in the playoffs. Now, what I usually did previously, I'm going to predict the conference finals and the rest. So, Golden State versus San Antonio. I think Golden State is better. I'd love to see San Antonio win it. So, because Duncan's probably going to retire. I want to see Duncan win a ring and retire. But that might not happen this year. So, I think Golden State will win in 6, maybe 7, but most likely 6, as the Spurs are a very, very, very good team, but the Warriors are even better. Now moving on to the Cavs versus the Heat. I really want to pick the Heat because I don't like the Cavs at all. But the thing is, I feel like the Cavs are too good, and Cavs will win in 6 as well. I'm picking a lot of games in 6. And for the finals, it's a rematch of last year's of the Cavs versus Warriors. And I feel like the Cavs will lose it in 5 games versus the Warriors. 4-1 series lead. And the Warriors are back-to-back champions. So anyways, guys, those are my predictions for the playoffs. Tell me what you think about them. Did I get anything wrong? Maybe if you watch my other video, tell me if I predicted something incorrectly and I said I got it right here. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. Let me know about that, what you think. Give me a thumbs up down below. It would be highly appreciated. Share with your friends if you want to. Talk about the NBA with them. Show them this video. Subscribe for more 2K and NBA content. I'm always putting stuff out. And yeah, of course, have a good day.